And at long last, welcome back to the Island of Sodor route, which was brought to Train Simulator by Glennock Creations. Yes, yes, hello everyone, and welcome back to another Train Simulator video, where today I figured I'd have a look at Diesel 10's basis, Class 42, otherwise known as Warship, by driving her along a little bit of the Little Western, even though I can't imagine it would be authentic, because I don't think Diesel 10 ever actually met Duck or Oliver, or they might have met Toby, if I'm remembering the events of Tragic Fail Road correctly. But anyway, we're currently in the sidings at Tidmouth Halt, and we're going to take the short goods train up the line through to Arlesburgh, where a Class 07 is waiting for them. I should add that the particular warship we've got is D821 Greyhound, which, if I'm not mistaken, is one of two warships that's in preservation, with the other one being D832 Onslaught. Curious white mark in the wheels, I wonder what that's for. Ooh, yeah. I'm not liking the curve out of the siding, but then again I seem to recall some of the curves that I saw in the actual Thomas tank engine program looked a bit sharp. Mind you, the wagons shouldn't have any trouble since they're only four-wheelers. Yeah, this is an engine that I don't think I've driven for a fair while. And from memory, it's just as I remember. It's okay, but it's certainly not fantastic, and I don't particularly like the sounds, if I'm being honest. Don't remember this tunnel being here. Yeah, this is, as I said, this is a route that was made by Glennock Creations, and as far as I know, it's still available. It's still available from their website, and if it is, I'll certainly put a link to it in the description so you can try it out for yourself. And I should add that there have been a few times somewhat recently, where people have asked me in the comments to cover the Island of Sodor again, so that's one of the reasons why I've decided to do this video. And to those people, I hope you enjoy this little run. Yes, as it's talked about in the Railway Series books and on the telly, the Little Western does run along the coast for a fair distance until it meets, quote, a port where big ships come in, end quote. Arlesburgh is also noteworthy for being, prior to I think 1946, in this fictional universe, it would have been the interchange for the narrow gauge Mid-Sodor Railway, which takes a very slow and winding route through the mountains, and then I think the terminus is at Peel Godred. Was it King Orry's Bridge? I can't remember. But I think it was about the 1960s when the miniature or 15-inch gauge Arlesdale Railway opened up on the formation between Arlesburgh and Arlesdale. So the Mid-Sodor would have been the domain of like Duke, Stewart and Falcon, and then the Arlesdale Railway is the domain of engines like Rex, Bert, Mike, Frank, Jock, and I think the Blister twins and Sigrid of Arlesdale. Anyway, I'm just thinking it would look rather silly if this Class 42 model was ever altered to feature a really great big claw on the roof. But I think for the time being, this is probably the closest we'll ever get to seeing a good and accurate rendition, or decently accurate rendition of Diesel 10 Train Simulator. And from what I understand, the 42s got their nickname because they were indeed named after warships. And this particular one, Greyhound, I don't actually know where this one got its name, but regardless, it's still... Well, it's actually somewhat ironic in this case, because the engine's clearly in this maroon livery, which I think suits the Class 42s quite nicely. This is... I should add that, in case you don't know, this particular version of the Class 42 is from the Western Hydraulics add-on, which it also includes the Class 35 High Mech and the Class 52 Western. So a trio of classic Western region diesel hydraulic designs. And I remember that I think it includes scenarios for the somewhat mixed bag that is the Riviera line in the 50s. And I realised that I'm coming in way too fast. And this station, of course, is Holtro. If I'm saying that right. And seeing as this is the Little Western, we do, of course, have Oliver. Well, obviously not the Thomas character Oliver, but the 1400 class that I think is meant to have. I think is meant to be him. So I did read somewhere that I think Oliver's proper number is meant to be 1436 instead of Northwestern Railway number 11. Anyway, he's got these two auto coaches. It's either Alice and Mirabelle or Isabel and Dulcie, I can't remember which. What I can remember is that this Island of Sodor route is meant to look more like a railway series rendition of the island and its rail network, rather than the TV series. So we saw that some of the sets they used in Season 3 to depict the Little Western showed it as being mostly double track, and also included it was a section I think where Duck, there was a shot in the episode Donald's Duck, I think, where Duck was running along the coast, and there were several sections where there were great big, where the bits where the rock face jutted out slightly and they had to cut a little bit of a tunnel to get the track through there. Yeah, you don't see any, I don't think you see any of that on this train simulator version. I must say, this 42 is certainly quite a contrast to the 37 I was driving in the previous video. For one thing, this doesn't have Armstrong Powerhouse sounds, but that 37 does. Speaking of which, I think if I'm not mistaken, the Class 42s, they don't have English Electric prime movers, but rather Maybach prime movers instead. So you see, the thing with the Class 42s is that they don't really look, or at least to me, they don't really look that much like a British locomotive. Although side on, I just realised that they actually look an awful lot like the Class 52. But anyway, no, the reason why the 42s look a little odd for British diesels is because their design is derived from the German V200. Although obviously it had to be reduced in size to fit the British loading gauge. Incidentally, I've just remembered that the V200 is in Train Simulator, and if I remember, I might actually do sort of a comparison video where I put like the Class 42 alongside the V200. Only problem is I can't remember what add-on the V200 comes with, unless it's just the European Loco and Asset Pack. Probably is, for all I know. I like how you can see there's a little bit of engine detail modelled there, but it's not much. Like whoever did the initial modelling for this didn't obviously model the full engine. I'm pretty sure that all three engines in that Western Hydraulics pack, which are obviously the Class 35, 42 and 52, they all had, I think weren't they all like Iron Horse House models that Dovetail updated when IHH sold the rights for its models to DTG? I don't remember. But what I do remember that a few years ago Dovetail did re-release some former IHH models, such as the BR Standard 6MT or Clan, as the 9F. Although that 9F model is pretty bad, if I'm honest. Come to think of it, I wouldn't mind seeing a developer like Caledonian Works do a whole new 9F model, so you could then include a proper BR Green livery for Evening Star. Because that's another thing that's missing from Dovetail's 9F pack. What else? There's also the Class 20, 45, the Class 45 Peak, pretty sure that's also That's another ex-IHH model. Although saying that, I remember the IHH models were kind of notorious for having, or were kind of notorious for having lackluster textures and often terrible sounds, especially for the diesels. I mean, some of them, from what I gather, people said that they sounded like more like washing machines than an actual locomotive. And earlier, before, when I was off camera, I was driving the USATC S100 tank from the Fora Peninsula route. That's an IHH model, and my god, it is awful. Doesn't live up to modern standards at all. Hasn't even got a proper model for the back or the boiler back head, so you can't do a proper cab view like this one. The tree's hanging a bit low. Won't be trimmed back. So yeah, this S100, it's a prime example of an IHH model with lackluster textures and awful sounds. I think the whistle is nicked from like the Union Pacific Challenger, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Yeah, sorry, you remember a certain comment someone said about that S100, which I won't repeat here. That wasn't me that made that comment, mind. Yes, so from memory, this route between Tidmouth and Arlesburgh, Little Western, is only about 8 miles, but of course we're not technically covering that whole section because, as you saw, we didn't start in Tidmouth proper. Instead, we just started at Tidmouth Halt. That's another thing I remember about the Donald's Duck episode, is that I think it involved Duck working on helping to build a new yard or something of that nature. I think Toby was helping out, which just probably makes sense since I put that J70 in, or into this free room scenario, of course. And yeah, I think that siding where we started from is meant to be the same location where that new station or shed was being built in that episode. I think it's a testament to just how good the original or the older Thomas the Tank Engine episodes were, that people still remember the more or less exact plots of them however many years later. And in my case, I'm surprised I still remember Thomas and the Magic Railroad, considering how, in my opinion, bad that film was. But at least Diesel 10 and Neil Crone's performance doing his voice was quite good, if I'm honest. And incidentally, here's another character that I don't think was in the series when Tragic Fail Road appeared, or when that came out rather. It's the Great Northern Stirling single, which is of course the basis for Emily. I do have a couple of videos on the channel where I've featured this engine. If I remember, I'll put one of them in the top right corner so you can check it out if you haven't done so already. Right, I think I've set the points correctly. So as we come into Arlesburgh, we see here's two other engines that, in the Railway series at least, run on the Little Western alongside Duck and Oliver. It is of course Donald and Douglas, or rather a realistic interpretation of Donald and Douglas. I think in the RWS books, they're meant to have, or their BR numbers are said to be 57646 and 57647, neither of which are historically accurate, because in real life the 812 numbers only went as far as 57645. And actually, come to think of it, I do have the twin engines, which is the Railway series book that they debuted in. And if you'll excuse me, I'll just go and get it from the pile of books over here. I hope the Class 42 can handle the curves of this dockyard. Although, wait a minute. I think I might have done this wrong. Yeah, I could have sworn I set the points correctly. Oh, never mind. Still, once the brakes are released, we can probably still proceed into that. Actually, no, that looks too short for this train. Back up. Sorry about this, folks. If anything, this is just a testament to how distracted I can sometimes get, and for that I can only apologise. even if I say I'm going to try and do something to fix it, never really can guarantee it. Sometimes it just randomly happens. Right, that's right. I'm just looking through the Twin Engines book now to confirm that Donald and Douglas were the... Ah, yeah. There's this line where the Fat Controller says, "Now then, which of you is 57646? If that's not enough proof of Donald and Douglas's original BR numbers, I don't know what is. Incidentally, I just realised, I can't imagine the Class 42s would have ever gone onto dockyard or dock sidings in real life. Or the only diesels that might have done would have been smaller ones like the Class 07 or Salty, if you will. Although, as we saw earlier, the 42 doesn't seem to mind really sharp curves, thanks to the bogies. It's not like, say, the London North Eastern Railway Q6. If you know what the Q6 is and what that wheel arrangement is, you'll know why I brought that up as an example of an engine that wouldn't handle tight curves very well. The Class 07s, on the other hand, again, this is basically salty, although I've realised now that I forgot to change the number to D821. These things were designed to be dock shunters, and they initially started running at Southampton Dock to replace the LBSCR E2s, which were the basis for Thomas, and the USATC S100s, or USA tanks, which were the basis for Rosie. Incidentally, I used to have a friend with the name Rosie. Haven't seen her for years. I'm not referring to the USA tank, mind, but an actual person. What do you think? But I also used to know someone named Thomas. Despite the fact that doesn't appear to be that much going on here, I can see that there's all these ships that are obviously wanting some of the cargo from these wagons. And I dare say they'll probably go to I don't know, the Isle of Skye or Ireland or the Isle of Man. Of course, the whole island of Sodor, that is a fictional island, but in the fictionalized version of England that the show takes place in, it's meant to be located between Barrow and Furness, which I think was in Cumbria or Lancashire on the mainland, and the Isle of Man. And there's a rail. There was, of course, rather famously, there's the rail connection between Vickerstown on Sodor and Barrow and Furness on the mainland. And I've just realised that this curve that we've stopped on, this angle, this viewpoint where the engine's going around the curve with the wagons, reminds me of the intro to the Season 3 episode Diesel Does It Again. Because I think it did show a shot of Duck going around a very sharp curve at a dockyard. That gives me an idea to do some sort of TS remake. Although I'm not sure what engine it had to represent Percy. Possibly that green 040 saddle tank from the Falmouth branch, I'm not sure. Anyway, this has been a relatively short run on the island of Sodor with Diesel 10's basis, the Class 42 Warship. And yeah, so now that we've reached the end of the journey, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. So yeah, until next time, take care everyone, and I'll see you around. I really need to work on my outros because they're always quite rusty.